I'm getting feedback from everybody, oh, this is a good resume. But the resume is not, it's not producing feedback. The LinkedIn also, my profile was not producing any bites. There's this inkling in the back of my head that I'm missing something. There is the way I'm writing it or the way I'm putting this together it's not where it could be, and it doesn't show what my potential is. It shows what I can do. I needed to show what the potential is so somebody can take a look at it and go like, oh, well, they did this, but there's more.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to our client case study today with Princy John. Princy, welcome.
Hi, David. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you. So, Princy has agreed to talk to us about her career transition and how she successfully moved into her new role and sort of the story behind that as well. So, we're just gonna go ahead and jump right in. And I guess, Princy, if we could, can we start with sort of your career path? Can you give us the 30-second overview of sort of how you've got to where you are in your career so far?
Sure, would love to share that with you. Definitely grew up coming out going, I want to go into IT. I knew that was where I wanted to start at a young age. Did the full degree thing, jumped into some IT jobs, some beginning IT jobs at the inception of where cybersecurity was. So was doing a little bit of security work, but then as those roles and programs evolved, moved into risk management. So at that point, I've been kind of slowly evolving in cybersecurity in the IT GRC field. So definitely well over 15 years in IT GRC, and got into developing some programs throughout. So definitely always been a doer, always been in there. That was where I just kind of grew up and got comfortable. And that kind of gives you a little bit of background of where I've been for about a little over 15 years.
Got it. And for our non-IT audience, GRC, what is that?
GRC. So IT GRC is the function in cybersecurity that does governance, risk, and compliance. So we do the risk management. So if you bring in a new solution or something, we'll do the assistance with the evaluation and making sure we're managing risks on the IT side for the company overall.
Obviously, you've been having success in your career. Can you describe what prompted your career transition?
Been growing and leading quite a bit in a lot of spaces, and also that whole entire, I think a lot of us got into the remote situation, into COVID and such, and been remote for a while with my prior organization and decided, okay, this is good. But then as we're going to that post-COVID environment and companies are going more on-site and hybrid, the remote position options were being limited. So that was one of the first inklings of maybe my opportunities to grow further, to do that jump into some type of a leadership role was a lot more difficult. And then also with everything going on between business and family, it's kind of hard to see where you can go with some of this. So that kind of prompted, it's my next step. I do want to get into that leadership title. I've been doing leadership level work, plus the implementation level work, those doer items, and decided, kind of looking at my resume, does my resume really talk to all my capabilities and potential?
So you're leaning into kind of that personal branding piece of it. But before we go too deep on that, when it sounds like there was a remote, kind of a back to office move, which obviously we've heard a lot about, and there are varying opinions on that, but there's definitely a big movement towards the return to office policies haven't been highly successful across organizations. So I think that's because, like you said, we all went through COVID, and we got a new taste of what work could be for us, what it could mean for obviously the work life, but also that balance with the personal life as well. With, I guess thinking through that, when you were thinking about your new role, what what were your goals? What were the boxes that you needed to check?
I definitely had been working a lot with doing more of management and committee running and all this. And then slowly evolving, my career was constantly evolving into leadership roles where I am front and forward with a lot of leaders and upper management and executives. And I liked the path that was going. So definitely want to get out of my current role and title into from a lead perspective into a next step. So kind of developed out what that would be. Also, I knew that when I was searching for a company, a lot of the companies that I've been working for were US only based, and I definitely wanted to go to a global company. I had worked in a global manufacturing company before earlier in my career. I really enjoyed the ability to connect with people across the globe and the difference in culture and how they develop things. So that was another item on there that was on it. So global and definitely a leadership role, and definitely wanted to widen my opportunities and not be limited. Like I said at the beginning, I came from an IT background, did all my degrees and everything's in IT, transitioned into cyber because I was at the inception of cyber security. And then it was always like, well, what does that mean after? And I always worked a lot with the business sides, and I kept that as an open line as well as
Yeah.
an opportunity. So the two major things, get into that leadership role, go to a global company. The other items were the, can I make that break? What does that mean? And what does that mean for my future too?
Yeah, and we'll talk about that in how your new role is different here coming up. What did you do in terms of preparation for the transition? You knew it was time to make a move. What did your preparation look like? What were your steps?
So first step was pulling out that resume that I had designed up 3 years ago for my current position at that time, and kind of basically going through it and doing what I've always done. Make an attempt myself, updated, added. One of the things I've always learned from my mentors was like, oh yeah, you should keep a list of your projects. You should keep a list of things so you can kind of figure out how to update your resume and make your next jump. And then I also got advice from a lot of people I know about, this is just post COVID, the market's not as good. And honestly, in my opinion, the market was the pre-COVID market, except we got tied into that lovely COVID market where just jobs were available all the time. So got advice on what those moves could be, reached out to my network just to kind of get a feel for what those opportunities are, but definitely started with that resume and made an attempt myself to see, can I rewrite it into something impactful versus that it almost looks like a job requirement list. I did this,
Yeah.
I did that, away from that. So those were the first steps, trying to figure it out myself.
And where did you go from there?
From there, I did, as I was stating, I was already reaching out to network connections and kind of surfing online. So doing LinkedIn, setting up job alerts, and basically kind of threw out that resume a little bit to a couple things that I've seen. Not really getting a bite, but definitely had a couple people take a look at it, and I'm getting feedback from everybody. Oh, this is a good resume, but the resume is not. It's not producing feedback. The LinkedIn also, my profile was not producing any bites. So it was coming in Q4. There were limited positions where somebody would really want you. Your resume is not getting really great feedback. Everybody's like telling you, and there's this inkling in the back of my head that I'm missing something. There is the way I'm writing it or the way I'm putting this together is it's not where it could be, and it doesn't show what my potential is. It shows what I can do. I needed to show what the potential is so somebody can take a look at it and go like, oh, well, they did this, but there's more.
Gotcha. So more than just what you've done, but what you're capable of. That resume that positioned you for the next
Yeah.
position, right? Which is definitely something we talk to our clients about all the time. Is that if you come in with a resume that really describes the background of what you've done, but doesn't lead the reader to understand where you're headed next and how you can take those skills, the technical skills, the leadership skills, and how you're aiming to go to that next level, and let the resume tell that story, let the LinkedIn profile tell that story, then you're missing out on those opportunities, right? You're not
Mm-hmm.
positioning yourself correctly. So
Yeah.
that's great. How about working with recruiters? So you went through, you had your resume and your LinkedIn profile optimized. What role did the executive recruiters play in this process?
So reached out to a few recruiters basically at this point, handed over my resume. Didn't really hear too much back from them, but remember, I was trying to understand the fact that I'm in Q4 and it's at the end of those budgets, and we're not probably going to hear too much from them till first quarter 2025 was the original thought, but I figured I'd get my hands in there. Most of them were they took the resume and said, "We'll get back to you," and never heard from them again.
Yeah.
It could be they have other candidates that better fit, or they just didn't have a position that fit based on what they're seeing.
When we talk to clients, oftentimes there's a perception of the recruiters are waiting for your resume,
Hmm.
and nothing could be further from the truth, right? If you put your recruiter hat on for a moment, which it's been a few years since I've been in the recruiting space, but it really hasn't changed, which is my allegiance is to my client who's trying to fill that talent gap on their team. And once we have those requirements defined, that's when we start working through our network. We start working through LinkedIn. We start working through those new connections on LinkedIn to say, well, who fills that talent gap? And then once they've identified those candidates, getting it down to those 3 to 5 finalists and presenting those to the clients, that's the real value of the recruiter. So what we advise people on is get your personal brand right. Your LinkedIn profile is oftentimes that first impression, and then the resume to support that story in some more detail, your career success that you've brought to the table. And then when you have it right, when the right opportunity comes up, the recruiter can immediately spot, I can see Princy would be a great fit for this role. And it's a very different order of things. Uh, but okay, so let's go into your job search process. What were the key steps in the process? So you've got your branding together. You did reach out to some recruiters. What did the timeline look like?
I had set a goal for myself somewhere by Q1 2025, I would have found a new position. So, kind of seeing that I was having difficulty with the resume and everything is when I reached out and started searching for someone who could rewrite my resume, someone who's dealt with resumes in general. And went through LinkedIn, opened up a project request, saw a couple feedbacks, and I was just like, I was 50-50. I was a little hesitant, did some research, and that's when I kind of came upon your company and some went through the information in there and decided, you know what, let's make a call. What's it going to harm at this point? So that was my first thing. I was like, you know what, recruiters aren't working, my resume doesn't look right. Let's try somebody who's in the space who does this all the time. Especially I want to get to my next level. I want that leadership jump to move from a lead title to, and I kept it really easy for myself. I was like manager, if I get associate director, That would be great. So I wasn't trying to overshoot, but I was trying to be realistic, but still have like, I want that title. I want to get the title that I've been evolving into and that I've been seeing people move into. So at that point, it was basically reaching out, got contacted by your team and tried to understand what the process is, worked with them, decided. I was asked the question, are you ready to make the investment? And I had to really think about it because it's a deeply impacting investment, with all the things. I have family, so kids in college, car payments, everything going on. And I had to really reflect upon myself and go like, this is my one shot. I have this one shot opportunity. Is it worth the risk? And the determination based on what I was seeing feedback from the little testimonials or little comments and different things that I would see on your site, and knowing where I was and knowing that I would need that assistance, I decided to make the jump. So then I got engaged with your team in December.
So for clarity, December 2024 is when we started working together.
Yep.
What happened from there?
From there, so we got the 2 weeks in, did the resume, went through the interview process with the team, came back with a drafted version, worked with them, came back with the LinkedIn optimization, and we did all the updates. And then in January, about the second week of January, I would say, reposted this new resume with LinkedIn updated profile. And then I saw a change.
Tell me about that.
Yeah, so that was kind of fun. Did as quickly as possible. I got as many resumes out because there was a lot of opportunities coming in. Definitely about 20 plus resumes and starting to get responses. People were actually at least trying to reach back out. Also was getting recruiters who were reaching out through LinkedIn.
Interesting.
So that started picking up a little bit, and that was a little exciting because now they're bringing in some potential opportunities as well. Was able to use that resume to go back into my network again and be able to post myself better, position myself better. The LinkedIn profile really did help on this next move because the hiring manager, well before posting the position, I was recommended, and she went in and took a look and was very happy with what she saw, which helped lead to this new position and newer opportunity. So that was from there. I believe I had multiple interviews post that. We're looking about February. So about mid-February, I would say I was interviewing. So within a month of getting this out, redoing it, getting it back into the network, we started the interview processes.
Got it. And I just want to highlight for our watchers here, for our viewers, that point about the recruiters seeing the profile, but also your LinkedIn profile. But you also said the employer, right? Taking a look at it, right? Because your LinkedIn profile oftentimes is that first impression.
Yep.
And you may have where you can see if somebody has viewed your profile and who it was, depending on their settings. You might just see that someone in an industry or someone has viewed the profile. But oftentimes what we see is once we've updated the LinkedIn profile, you start to get that additional activity. And it's less about the volume and more about the quality, right? Because it's not how many people viewed, it's how many of the right people viewed, right? And the old adage, oh, well, it's who you know. Our take is it's not that that's not important, but what's more important is who knows you, right? And the job search process is really it's a branding, it's a marketing process, and the better job you do of marketing yourself and what's next for you, then you get that exposure to the right people who have the right roles, who are the decision makers in this hiring process. So, and it sounds like that's how it worked for you as well.
Hmm. It was. Definitely that LinkedIn profile was hit up by multiple, once I got into the interview phase, once I got past the recruiting or past a recommendation, the first activity I started seeing, because I do have that ability to see who's viewed my profile, were from the companies that I would be going to interview with or have just gotten my resume in their hands. Those hiring managers were starting to look and validate that resume to that LinkedIn, but that's their first impression of me because it's the first place they're going to see a visual picture of me, plus some of my background and probably some of the information that I may not have on the resume.
Can you walk us through the interview process and what did that look like? I guess specific for your new role. How did that play out?
So I found the interview process is different from company to company. I've learned there was the one was very traditional. The talent acquisition team got in touch with me, and their manager did the traditional within a week of getting my resume in their hands. They set up an interview, and we went through the traditional questions plus the additional questions that the hiring managers had. The other one where I did get my position at, they have a different format. The managers reach out and start picking up, and the recruiting, the talent HR group joins towards the end. So it's just a different way. A different philosophy on how they like to let the hiring manager have more of a lead position on who they really want to interact with and make those connections. So that was kind of different, but definitely had two opportunities that I was interviewing at the same time because of those recommendations. That took it was because most of the positions were an associate director. So the three positions that had the strongest opportunities for me, one was in cybersecurity, two were in cybersecurity, and one was outside of cybersecurity doing a leadership technology role, a very unique role that allowed me to leverage all this IT work, but in the business side.
Outside that cyber box, so to speak.
Right. But I get to leverage all my cyber capabilities because now I'm going to be that liaison between cyber IT and now the business. So very unique opportunity because that usually doesn't happen very often. And all these interview processes for those associate director positions and such are normal 4 to 5 interviews. So getting all those scheduled and then going through all the way to the end.
So that's interesting, right? Because you didn't necessarily have, and when we talked about checking the boxes earlier, it's not that you had your sights set on it's going to be this business liaison side of things. You were looking to, you wanted to move up on the leadership side. You wanted to leverage what you had brought to the table, but you ended up with one of the opportunities was something that maybe was outside of the traditional next step, but also you found enticing.
So there was a rush because now these managers and recruiters kind of knew that I was interviewing in multiple places. That worked to my advantage because all three of them were highly interested. So then that sped up the process probably a little bit more for me just because my resume at this point talks to my impact. I'm able to talk to my impact. I was able to just freely talk about what I do, how I do it, and leave a really great impression. So when it came down to it, one of them decided they wanted to supersede the other one and have the opportunity to come with an offer letter before anybody else does. And
Excellent.
that was more on the business side end. And again, this was one that was recommended, where I was recommended to, and they were very happy with my background in my interview. That one was an interesting interview because I had all the interviews in one day. We did
All the interviews for position all happened in one day?
Because I had two positions I was applying for in that same company. One's on
Aha,
cyber, one's on the business side.
got it. So
So,
of the three opportunities too within the same organization.
yes.
Okay, got it.
So it did lead to a little bit of competition on their side to see who could snatch me, I guess, or if I fit either one. But so that was an interesting process. I never typically do that. I usually just go for one, but this opportunity had this the business side opportunity was a refreshing restart for me. It allowed me to say that even with all my skills and everything, I'm not limited to just cybersecurity and IT. I do have the potential, and this goes back to that capability, to lead and be a strong technical leader within the business and bridge the gaps between cybersecurity and IT. So where within the business they would go, okay, what are these cyber guys saying, or why is it always a no, or why is this IT? I had the background to kind of be able to give the details on both sides, and it makes sense to both sides. So I've never seen a position like that very often. So it just kept enticing me, like, this is your next career move. Why stay in cyber? Why stay in IT? If somebody's seeing potential in you, why not try that potential? See where it goes.
So you mentioned earlier, and you kind of glossed over it. I'd like to drill in a little bit. You had said that your resume, your LinkedIn profile had positioned you, but you were able to speak to the value that you brought, and then you mentioned that that was part of part of them seeing that in you as well. How did you get to the point where you could speak to that value? What did you do to refine that message?
Prior to the interviews, I already had the background for a lot of it. And prior to the interviews, I did do a little research on the company, the regulatory ends, and the pieces, because I'm very much in a risk management type position in this. So I did my research, I did my reviews of what's required for that company. What is required for them to be successful? What's their background like? And that kind of helped me generally come to a good consensus of what the possible questions could be. One, and two, I've worked so much with the business, I just had a confidence level. And then also, I will say that when I worked with your team, I had that coaching where it said, be memorable. And it was easy. It's easy for me once I get connected to someone, and I had to hype myself up, have quite a bit of espresso that morning to just pop in the energy. And the rest is, it was the research, understanding what the background is, understanding the core concepts of leadership. And it doesn't matter, I did, to be a leader and to be able to be a liaison between technical and non-technical teams is what I've been doing for over 15 years. Because I worked a lot with the business side in kind of helping them navigate cybersecurity and their cybersecurity requirements with vendors and solutions. So I've always had to translate between the business side, the compliance side, and the cybersecurity and IT side. So the thing was there a position for me in the business that allows me to do the same thing? So it was an easy shoe to fit into.
I guess kind of looking back, and obviously you found this role that allowed you to move ahead in your and move your career forward on the leadership side, but then also functionally allow you to do the things that you really want to do, and to break outside of that IT box, if you will, IT or cyber box. And what are some of your reflections on the process? And you know, kind of looking back, what did you learn in that process? Talk to us about that.
What I learned is common skill sets, common capabilities across a business. how to leverage, building partnerships, building relationships, the importance of building relationships within a company, outside of a company. And that also translates into my daily work. That ability to build relationships, those network connections, and the importance of how that plays in your role if you're looking to continue to move forward into different areas. Keeping up on my skill set in general and general knowledge. So knowing that that change and ability for me to transition from one area into another really opened up my eyes to all the things I've been doing and what that total impact has been. And it just kept building and building. And at the time that I was building it, I didn't see it as much because I was narrow-minded and focused because I was young enough in my career where I'm like, oh, okay, I understand this, and everybody in this stays in their safe zone.
Yeah.
And that's something that somebody pointed out to me when I told them I was going to switch from financial services, which was my last employer in the financial services group, to pharmaceutical manufacturing. And they're like, you really want to make a jump? I'm like, why not? That's part of my character, I would say. It's a personal why not, because I jumped from automotive manufacturing to a hospital system to health insurance to financial services over to pharmaceutical manufacturing. And irregardless, I kind of stayed within that little cyber thing. That was probably my one niche, but it was understanding that all those little pieces actually allows me to move anywhere I want to, as long as I can understand the impact of how that all works together and leverage that to my benefit.
Amazing. Yeah. So getting some that internal understanding of the value that you've brought, and we talk about the and sometimes it comes off as a little harsh, but we talk about it's not actually about in the hiring process. It's not actually about you. It's actually about the talent gap on their team that they're trying to fill. And what they're trying to determine is does Princey does she check the boxes for what she needs to understand? And does she check the boxes for where we want this to go and the gap that we have that needs to get filled? Is she the right person? And oftentimes what we say is once they decide you are the right person, the search is over, right? Because those of us on the hiring side, we know how much time and effort and money is put in trying to find the right candidate. And we've all seen the stats of when you hire the wrong candidate, the cost of that, right? Not just the lost time and the opportunity cost, but the actual fiscal impact of that wrong hire. And once in fact you demonstrated it, right? They determined you were the right person, and then it went very fast, right? Once that was the case, you decided it was the right opportunity. They decided you were the right person for the opportunity, and same day.
Same day. They were I was the last interview set for them, so within that day, I had 4 interviews back to back. By the end of the day, I got an offer.
Yeah, so that sort of proves the point, right?
Yeah.
They knew you were the right person. You also adeptly introduced the concept. This wasn't the only opportunity that you were talking about. And again, once they decide you were the right person, they put you on the fast track for the offer. Thinking through this, what advice would you have for others that are considering making a career transition? What would be the main points that you'd say, here are the things, if you're contemplating making a similar change, here are the things you should focus on?
Don't limit yourself, number one. Don't limit yourself to an industry. Don't limit yourself to a department or sector. Really evaluate yourself and see if you can move your talent into different areas within a business. Because the business is not just IT and the business, there's a lot of components. So be open would be another thing. Be open to the fact that you can move on. Number three, but very important, I guess, is network, network, network. Build those, and a network means you need to do more than just meet someone. You need to build a relationship with them. If David, you and I just met at a conference. I meet a lot of people at conferences. And we just exchanged something, and you're just watching, like once in a while, maybe she'll post something. Once in a while, maybe we'll hear from each other. I see you once. And let's say I have a position open, you go like, oh, that's an interesting position. You might throw your hat in, but I'll remember, oh, Dave, I think friends. And that's all I know. He's in my network. He's in my LinkedIn network. Well, I'll think about it. But if I have somebody else who I've met at a conference and we've had that banter, we had the discussions, we talked about same philosophies, or we interact, even if it's through LinkedIn, and then we meet up at other conferences and we build a little bit more than just a network relationship, but that level that's one above that, which I don't know what you call it, but it's that one above that. I'm going to remember that person over you for the next position that I open up in my department.
Whatever we would call that, I think what we would call it is you're actually engaged with somebody, right?
Engagement, yeah.
It's not just another connection count on LinkedIn. It's somebody that you've had conversation with, you've shared some resources, you came across an article that you're like, you know what, I bet they would find this valuable. You sent it to them and they were like, oh, that's great. And it is that deepening the connection just by engaging with somebody.
That way you open yourself up for new opportunities. And I like having a lot of connections. I mean, I have a decent number of connections in LinkedIn. I could use more, but I love the engagement. I'm definitely a people forward person. And the more I can engage with you, the more I can understand you, the more I can see you in other roles. And that's what I want to do with as many of my connections. I get a lot of connections, a lot of vendor connections, a lot of all kinds. I'm trying to seep through to the connections that I know that that person and I can engage, regardless if 3 years from now I'm looking for a job or whatever. The connection and the engagement should be because I want to engage with that person, because then they're going to see value in me and potential in me if something pops up. I've had phone calls before where like, hey, I haven't seen you in a while, but there's this position out here. Would you be interested? And that's your next potential move. Could be the right move, could not be the right move, but you now have control in your hands. It's not in everybody else's hands. So you kind of take control of your career.
Yeah. And also an opportunity, if it's not the right position for you, is there somebody else in your network?
Yeah. That you can
could
refer.
introduce, and then you're adding even more value in the nodes of the network, so to speak, right?
Exactly.
So, amazing. Well, Princey, I really appreciate you being willing to invest some time with us today, and I know you're so busy in your new role, and we're very excited that you found not just that next level, but also that those additional responsibilities, that being that business liaison. And I can see it, when you talk about it, you kind of light up about that next role. So that we're very, very happy for you, and thank you for sharing with our audience today your journey and the advice. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. It was wonderful having this opportunity to share all this with you. And to anybody else there, be open, network, engage, and good luck.
Well, thank you, everybody. We hope you got tremendous value from today's session. And for Princy John, this is David Kohanek from ExecutiveResumeWriters.com, wishing you great success in your career transition.